Welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel, where I'm doing some more garage organizing. I feel like this is every video now. Like, I'm just digging through the garage, trying to make space, trying to get rid of old junk, and finding junk that I don't remember I had. Like, this thing was kind of buried under a bunch of other stuff. I think it's a spot welder. Now, I basically dumpster dived this from work. Somebody abandoned it when they moved out of a warehouse at work, and I ended up taking it home and just hoarding it because I don't know how to use it. And it ended up under the pile of other stuff. I just moved all the satellite dishes over to this shelf and cleared up some space over here. I'm hoping to bring in the pump car train and kind of store it in the garage here, but I got to do a little more moving around. I got to move some more boat stuff and some other junk here so I can fit that. And then we got to figure out what to do with this guy. Now, I don't know if this thing even works, and I also have to admit, I have no idea how to use a spot welder. I'm not even sure how to use a real welder. I have a real welder here, or this was real in like 1935. Somebody gave this to me. It's called a tombstone. That's either because of the shape or because of where you end up when you use it wrong. That is on the to-do list to figure out. It's got a weird 220-volt plug. And my garage actually has a weird, I think it's 220-volt outlet, but every one of these outlets is slightly different. It just is based on the amperage or something. And that one was for an AC unit, so I have no idea what amperage it is. Anyway, back to the arc welder. This thing comes with some mysterious extra parts. More mysteries. A big old main power supply unit. This is what I'm actually interested in. I don't know if I'm going to do any arc welding, but I feel like I could make a coil gun or something with this guy. And look at that. This thing even comes with the manual. Manuals are something that I rarely use or look at on this channel, but I guess it's theoretically nice that it exists. This thing even has a serial port on it. I have a serial port controllable welder. I don't know what to use that for, but it's got it. These cables aren't really labeled positive or negative, so I guess it doesn't matter. And this thing is way more complex than I want. There's like password protection, there's programs you can put in, there's pulse widths, there's pulse shapes. There's all kinds of crazy controls on the thing. Now this thing uses 115 volt, which is that weird compromise between 110 current and 120. American power outlets aren't known for consistency. I should mention, and it should go without saying, don't try any of this at home. I basically don't know what I'm doing here. I have some experience with capacitors, I have some experience with big shocky things, but this could hurt or kill you pretty easily. So don't screw around with big capacitors, don't screw around with welders unless you know what you're doing. You have some basic safety stuff, or you've read the manual, some of which I've done. So I've been reading through this manual, and there is nothing actually useful in here. It is 140 pages of metallurgy, programming pulses, RS-232 information, weld head types, program saving, pulse widths, safety. Most of this is safety. There's nothing in here about how to actually use this. There is no step-by-step how-to guide. This seems to assume that you know how a capacitive discharge welding system works. And it talks about atomic movement, forge welding, joint locations, resistivity. It gives you all kinds of just crazy information about welding all kinds of different metals that I've never even heard of. Like, we've got normal metals like aluminum, magnesium, copper, iron, gold, silver, platinum. And then we've got stuff like consol and cupron and constantan, dumet, evanome, karma. I didn't know you could weld karma. I don't know what any of this stuff is. Anyway, the manual seems to be pretty useless. This is why I don't read manuals for anything. As best I can tell, you stick your two metals in between these electrodes, you turn on your power supply, you select your program, and you mash that foot pedal, and it should arc, or at least heat up, weld your two pieces of metal together. Let's just see if we can weld some random things together with the default settings. But our knives are definitely not welded together. Let's try some thin aluminum. This claims it can weld aluminum. Yeah, nothing happened that time. I looked around online and I found a couple other potential settings to use. So, looks like sometimes people just use program 0, and they set this to something like 50. And I'm going to try welding a couple steel washers together. Now, I know you can just stick your fingers in there. I see people on YouTube just holding their two metal items while they zap it. I'd prefer not to have my fingers right next to hot, sparky stuff, so We're going to use the rubber handle pliers here. I've also sanded down the edges of these a little bit. They were a little bit rusty, so hopefully they make good contact. All right. Well, that was certainly a more robust spark, and yeah, these guys seem to be, well, no, they just popped apart. Maybe I didn't have the surface clean enough. We'll try that again. Definitely made a nice mark on the top washer, but they still fall apart right away. So I'm still not doing this right. Now, it's possible these are too thick and they're just not conducting the heat very well through the surface of the washer. So maybe a power level of 50 is just for tacking together tiny foil-like stuff. I'm struggling to find any thinner steel in any of my junk drawers here. Maybe something like a tape measure tape would work. So can I do something like weld this very thin wire terminal onto this very thin tape measure? And that time it didn't even fire. Well, that didn't work either. What if we just crank this way up? Yeah, still nothing. We're just gonna go ahead and max this out. That seems fine. And it welds itself to the contacts just fine, but it doesn't weld my workpieces together at all. Well, so far this seems pretty useless. I've heard they're good for welding like battery terminals together, but I've never made my own batteries, so I can't think of another use for it. I was hoping to actually weld together that measuring tape and a wire because I want to start making Yagi antennas out of measuring tapes, but I guess I'll just have to do soldering the old-fashioned way and not bother with this stuff. Feel free to tell me in the comments what I'm doing wrong, if I'm doing something wrong, or if this thing is just broken and I should rip the guts out and make something else out of it. Feel free to leave a comment down below about what this thing is. If you know of a good how-to video, a basic intro guide to this thing and what it can do for me. I expect plenty of comments about why I'm an idiot and how I'm going to injure myself with this, or why I'm an idiot and I shouldn't tear this apart. It's worth thousands of dollars or something. I can't even tell if it works correctly. I can get it to make some weak little sparks, but it doesn't do much else than that. So I have no idea if it's broken. I have no idea if I'm using it incorrectly. I have no idea if I'm breaking it more by using it incorrectly. For now, it's going to go back in a box, back into the pile of junk in the garage until if and when I learn what it's good for and how to use it. And if I don't learn what it's good for, how to use it, then we'll tear it apart and we'll make it into something else. Until then, thanks for watching. Stay tuned to see what other random junk we find, and we'll see you next time.